Welcome to Shinoken's World. Today, I would like to welcome Dr. Beverly Rubik. She's a biophysicist who's published over 100 scientific papers relating to human biofield, subtle energy, and physics healing. Dr. Rubik is the founder and the president of our Institute for Frontier Science in California. Dr. Rubik, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much, Ken. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming. It's my honor to speak with you today. I first learned you from Solari Report.
Yes,
in that interview, you mentioned about the connection between 5G and the COVID-19. It was really shocking for me to hear your story. And you mentioned, how difficulty to complete this peer review report. And I also strongly believe that there is a connection between this, 5G and COVID. And Japan is starting 5G from summer in 2025. And I'm trying to understand, how to live together. We can't avoid this. Could you advise, about this report?
well, 5G is one of the greatest threats to our health. And I immediately, when I heard about it, I said, we must do something about this because it's really quite threatening, not only to human health, but the entire biosphere, the environment, because it means everything that you own that's plugged in or electric is going to be hooked up to the internet. And that means all these active emitters emitting wireless communication radiation or microwaves all around us. And already our environment is about 1 million times above Earth's natural background. In other words, there really wasn't much microwave radiation until humans developed technology. Basically, the sun and the stars put out a little bit of microwaves, but our atmosphere, which has a lot of water and carbon dioxide, absorbs those microwaves. So we really did not have a large microwave background. But now, in the typical city, just walk down the streets with a handheld meter that will measure radio frequencies, and you will find values that are 1 million times above Earth's natural background. So you can see that we already are exposed to a tremendous amount of technological radiation, EMFs, which is a stressor to all life. And with 5G implemented, with so many emitting objects in our environment, not only more antennas and more cell phone towers, but more devices in our immediate environment, in our homes, our schools, and businesses, we are over the top with a EMF stressor. And one thing that we can do is don't use so many emitting devices. I mean, stick with old-fashioned non-emitting devices. Now, of course, most of us need a cell phone for daily work. I have one right here, but I have it on airplane mode. I have the wireless turned off and the Bluetooth turned off just about all of the time. And even then, it's still emitting somewhat. I can measure that with a meter. So I keep it at least 1 meter away from my body. I never put a cell phone in my pocket or my sports bra or anything on the body, because again, the closer you are to these devices that emit, the greater the stressor. So we need to keep distance, and we need to say no to a lot of really non-essential devices that are going to be emitting in the 5G era. We don't need everything emitting. We got by just fine with a cell phone and a computer and maybe a Wi-Fi router, but to think that everything you own is going to be emitting and sending data to the internet, ask yourself, who is this really for? I think it's about surveillance by third parties who want to sell you things, or maybe the government, but we don't need all of these signals and this kind of data in our lives. We can get by just fine with a minimum of 5G devices. So those are my suggestions. I don't know any way to really 100% protect the body. A lot of people have asked me about devices on the market. I think some of them do some partial good, but I haven't seen anything that actually will give you 100% protection.
I see. I heard that you are at your lab, you're trying to create manufacture some measurement system. May I ask what's the update on that?
Well, we're still at it. We have a prototype now of, first of all, a first generation device that will tell people about emitting 5G devices. And it's not quantitative. In other words, it's not going to give you numbers, but it will flash either green, yellow, or red LEDs, just like a stoplight. Green is safe, yellow is not so safe, red is definitely in the danger zone. And it will make sound. So the closer you get to an emitting device, it will beep, 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 faster and louder. And so a lot of people are just clueless. What is emitting in their environment? They don't realize that, for example, wireless landline phones, sometimes also called DECT phones, are actually emitting a lot of radiation all of the time. And they keep these phones on their desk or near their bedside. And these phones emit more radiation than your cell phone. And so with such a simple device, people can go around and figure out what is emitting in their environment and start to take charge by reducing exposure to these things, put them far away from yourself, or simply get older devices that are not emitting. So the 5G device, we probably will be bringing out next year. That is 2025. We're looking for a market. Maybe you can help us with Japan.
Please, yeah, I'm looking forward to hear your material. Thank you so much. And Japan is also starting a smart city, and everything is now smart. Smart TV, smartphone, smart city. And I believe you mentioned that we have to become a more, dumb, not smart, because the smart is very dangerous, and we need to somehow try to figure out the way to go back to like an ancient age. So now I'm living a mountain. I'm trying to, build a community doesn't use this 5G technology, living in mountain water, living in the nature. I think, going back to the nature is more important. And I think, this is time is trying to, realize how important nature is. And I believe that your expertise is a biofield. And could you advise us spiritually and materially, how this biofield work in our future, our human being?
Certainly. But before I do, I just want to respond to what you said about going out in nature.
Okay.
And it's very, very important. And I know it's very much a part of your culture in Japan, because I've been there a lot in past decades, at least, and very much appreciated the Japanese relationship with nature, which is very strong. And, in modern days, we're really losing touch with this, sadly, because we sit at desks with technology in our jobs and even afterwards watching videos and communicating on social media. And we forgot about going out in nature and really feeling enriched, getting fresh air and sunlight is so important. And you can't say, well, I take a vitamin D pill and that, substitutes for my sunlight. I'm sorry. You can't get everything in a vitamin D or any capsule that will give you what nature can provide. So yes, indeed. And in relation to what you said, I too am interested in forming what I call a clear zone community. It sounds like what you're doing, in fact. In other words, a large scale ranch. In the US, we use the acreage to designate land size. I don't know what you use in Japan, but something on the order of 1,000 acres. So it would be a very large ranch because we don't want the placement of cell phone towers or antennas of 5G infrastructure anywhere near where this community would be. So we could be in the center of this large acreage and have animals and agriculture around us and really make it a prototype for how humans should be living. Close to nature, small businesses. This to me is smart. And, everything else called smart these days by the powers that be is not smart for us. It may be smart for some economy, but it doesn't really help the people. And so let me get to the biofield then. Okay, so how is this, all this radiation around us that's increasing and becoming more and more stressful and giving people symptoms such as sleeplessness, waking up in the middle of the night, pain syndromes, inability to concentrate, or memory problems, all of these things, ringing in the ears, tinnitus as it's called. These are all symptoms of electrosensitivity. In other words, we're having symptoms already from the microwave levels around us, and it's an increasing problem. And how does this happen? Well, when this radiation comes and into our biofield, into the area, and touches our skin, etc., it's actually disrupting the human energy field, the biofield. It will disrupt every organism's biofield. I've conducted experiments on plants. I've seen the same thing. They can't grow. They're stunted. They have long, skinny stems. They're desperately seeking a place where there's less microwaves. They're deformed. And people, too, are suffering. It starts first with the energy field being disrupted by, again, EMFs in our environment. And they're invisible. You can't smell them. You can't see them. But there they are everywhere, literally, with 5G. 5G is about a wireless worldwide web everywhere on Earth. There's no escape. But so our biofields are the first that are hit. And then the tissue starts suffering. How does this work? Well, actually, it's based on principles of Oriental medicine. So in Oriental medicine, where the mind goes, the chi or the ki flows, and the blood and flesh follow. Now, if you were a perfect, let's say, meditator or qigong master, maybe you could ward off some of these things, but most of us aren't. So our minds are not that powerful to really handle the disruption in our biofields. So the biofields are disrupted, and what follows is the flesh and blood being disrupted based on Oriental medicine principles. It's very clear. And the science, the Western science, shows the same results. I can show you, based on studies I've done, ordinary people whose biofields look good in devices scientific devices that I use to measure them. Suddenly, when I put a cell phone near them, they don't even know it, let's say behind them, and look at the biofield again with tests, I see the biofield is disfigured, left-right imbalanced, and they may say they'd feel nothing, but over time, a stressor like that in the biofield will start disrupting the physiology and the biochemistry, and the person will start to suffer symptoms, and finally, diseases will set in. So that's where we're headed, and we've got to protect our biofields.
Very interesting. So now I think, biofield, the 5G is all connected. And yesterday, Mr. Trump became a president of the United States, and Mr. Elon Musk, he is, expanding his satellite business, using 5G technology. My concern is, the relationship between this, project. What's going to happen about this, Starlink project?
The Starlink project is about placing maybe 100,000 satellites in lower Earth orbit to bring the wireless internet everywhere on Earth. I don't agree with it. I also don't think the satellites will be strong emitters compared to antennas and cell phone towers. So we have more to worry about with the infrastructure on Earth than the satellites. But still, it's making the whole atmosphere of planet Earth abnormal and not fit for life. It's terraforming the Earth, in my opinion, for robots.
Yes.
Only robots are fit to live in this sea of microwaves by all the satellites and earthly infrastructure of 5G. So we have a lot to be concerned about. And I know there's been a lot of activism everywhere in the world to try to stop 5G, to put a moratorium on 5G until we understand more about health concerns. But sadly, the activism has not really done very much. I know in my city, I've gone to City Hall and I've spoken about health effects of 5G in an attempt to stop this infrastructure. And the city council shook their heads and they said, we have no jurisdiction over health. And I was surprised to hear this. But in the United States, we have certain laws that supersede, let's say, lower governments like city and county governments, because the federal government and the state governments want 5G. They want these things. I think for the military-industrial complex more than for the people. So yes, we have a lot of things going on at the political level that I think the people need to take back their governments. They need to say no. They need to rise up and recognize the peril for our health with some of these decisions that our leaders are making, including Operation Warp Speed, now the boosters to the COVID injections. And I'm very much concerned about even the interrelationship between those injections and 5G. This is conjecture on my part, but I did write a paper about the possible relationship between COVID and the introduction of 5G several years ago with a colleague in radiology, Robert Brown from University of Pittsburgh. And that paper was very difficult to publish, but we did publish it and it stands. And I think that some of the effects of microwaves on the body are similar to some of the COVID symptoms and even some of the problems with the COVID injections. And one of the main ones being clotting. We've seen a lot of trouble with strange clotting in COVID patients, even upon autopsy when they die, and also with the COVID injections or shots. Some people are getting heart attacks and strokes and other blood clots around the body. So this is problematic. And I do think there's a relationship and we need to take stock of this before more people suffer.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you think, Mr. Trump's strategy will improve United States?
I think there's some strategies that Donald Trump will take that will improve the United States. His slogan, "Make America Great Again." There are certain things that he can do. I'm not fond of his relationship to the COVID injections. First of all, I don't think they saved any lives. They're not safe. They're not effective. So what are we doing? I think we're making money for the pharmaceutical industry. And I think it really was untested and there's no clarity on what it does for anybody. I don't recommend it, but then again, I'm not a medical person. I'm just a person saying that. But sadly, I notice in this state, in California, the universities here, University of California and the various campuses, are still requiring the injections for incoming students this fall and people who work there, etc. So they haven't recognized some of the perils from these injections. And that concerns me. It's really hard to say what Donald Trump will do for America. I know that he's only one person, and I do believe that the government is a very ingrained system. There's a lot of people in Washington who are career politicians who have worked for decades, and it's very hard to make change, nourishing change in such a big bureaucracy. But I think he's going to try, and I guess all we can do is wait and see what his administration will bring.
Thank you for your opinion. And I heard that, like the ruling class party, they are not using hospital. They are focusing on homeopathy, using like herb. And I heard from your video that, herb and the memory of your water will heal our body. And the human being are, 70% water. And so do you think that the water will help us to improve our body?
I certainly think that water will help us, and I'm well aware that in Japan you often use the water ionizers. People get the water ionizer, which is an electrical appliance that, first of all, has filters that purify water and then runs water over electrodes that are usually platinum coated electrodes. And then you drink the alkaline fraction of this water. And I do believe that that water is extremely healthful. I've done some studies on it and I've reviewed the literature on this water. And for example, it can help with blood sugar regulation in diabetics. It can help with the tendency for the blood to clot. I myself have seen this under the microscope, that people whose red blood cells tend to be sticky, when observed under the microscope, you see the red blood cells sticking together. When they drink this water, it helps the red blood cells become free again. And that's a good thing. So in other words, if you have a problem with blood clotting, then drinking this water is extremely helpful. I think that water is one of those things that we ignore a lot because, well, it's everywhere, it's common, and most people prefer to drink other beverages. I myself love green tea, and here I am drinking your sencha tea this morning for breakfast. It's my daily green tea. But I also think that we need to drink more water. And less tea, less juice, less liquor, because we're made of water and we need to clean the body. I remember once looking at a person's blood. She drank only soda pop. She told me this. And when I saw her blood, I was astounded. It was full of microbes.
Micro.
When viewed in high magnification and dark field microscopy, I could see very strange things in her blood that looked like microbes. And when she told me she drank only soda pop, I was astounded. And I asked her the question. I said, "Would you wash your dishes with soda pop?" And she laughed and said, "Of course not." I said, "Well, you're trying to clean your body, drinking only soda pop, and it doesn't work. You must take water." There was a book written a few decades ago, Your Body Cries for Water. A Dr. Batmanjali, he was in New York City. He started the water cure. He started giving his patients prescriptions to drink more water and quality water. Water that's filtered, water that's energized by water structurizers, vortex with magnetic fields and things. And many of them got better. Chronic diseases started disappearing. So it's really remarkable, but we must think about drinking water to preserve our health and push the water, because as you get older, you have less of a sense of thirst. That you don't think you need water, but you really need water. You need about 2 liters minimum per day.
2 liters. Oh, wow. So many. When I hear your story, always, reminds me of Mr. Emoto Masaru. He wrote a book, that the water is changing shape by the sound, with our voice. And I believe that your biofield also studies about this, sound wave.
Yes, now he was really a genius who brought this to the world. I remember his first book with the water crystals, showing the beauty of the love crystal, the crystal that where people thought about love and maybe wrote the word love on the container. And then the opposite, the word hate, and how ugly those crystals were. They really had no symmetry, no beauty. So it certainly seems to be so that sound and can shape matter. And I think that we have a lot to learn about that. Some people think that even the great pyramids of Egypt, how did people move those giant stones in an ancient world? And they think that somehow sound, resonant sounds, can actually defy gravity and help them lift rocks. That it was really involved in amazing things like that, like constructing the great pyramids of Egypt. So I think that sound is very important in healing and in restoring the biofield. And if you don't believe that, well, I think you should try chanting or singing, even if you're not a singer, don't expect to have a perfect voice, but be surprised if you start singing, even Om, just a short period of time, how much better you'll feel, how much energy you can release here in the chest and the throat, and you'll have a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's very important to choose our sound because we don't choose our sound, in our daily life. We don't have a consciousness to focus on these things. But these things are affecting our body, and it's really sometimes it's very scary.
There are some qigongs or qigong where they actually they sing special sounds corresponding to the various organs.
Okay.
I don't know these, I can't replicate them here, but I've experienced them from teachers of Qigong. And I think it's very powerful. If you have a problem with the heart, then there's certain way to sing a certain note and sound that will help the heart. So this has been known for, again, thousands of years. And we must look back to our ancestors who really explored so many frontier topics about how consciousness, how voice can affect the body, how we can affect one another. And we know the power of music. It really is a powerful thing. Sound can really move a mountain, literally, and can really benefit us if it's the right sound.
Yes, especially like classic music is
Yeah,
have a good effect in our life.
exactly.
Dr. also Luc Montagnier, I believe that he found that the DNA is a wave, and
Yes, DNA is a wave or can be made into a wave. And that's a totally amazing thing. He took, let's say, a DNA of a virus, and he diluted it, made it very dilute. And then he had it in one test tube that was sealed. He had another test tube of pure water, and he could transfer the information from the highly dilute viral DNA using a frequency wave, a carrier wave of 7 hertz, to carry the information to the second test tube. And in the second test tube, then they added things to make DNA, and sure enough, they found the original DNA of the closed, sealed test tube. So it's bioinformation transferred by a wave. We can call it electromagnetic bioinformation. And actually, that word was coined back in 1988 by Dr. Fritz Popp in Germany, who was also exploring the light of life, the photons, the biophotons emitted from living things, including us. And we explore also biophoton emission in our laboratory.
I see. Interesting.
So there is information in living things that can be conveyed electromagnetically. And that's part of the biofield. The biofield contains information. It's not just some useless energy like heat. No, it's rich with information. And, if you're in among other people, you can pick up that information and decode it. You can understand someone who's depressed or joyful even before they say anything, because you can feel and decode that information in their biofield.
Interesting. May I ask your opinion about the shedding? Some people say a phenomenon called shedding. And when people have a vaccination, it will transfer to other non-vaccinated people. But I think that, it's not the vaccination, but more like 5G is shedding us.
Well, it's hard to say what's going on there, but there is definitely a shedding phenomena. And I think I personally experienced that the first time when the vaccinations first came out here, and suddenly then the lockdowns were over, people were having parties again and eager to connect. And I remember going to a birthday party for someone and giving this person a big hug and not realizing they had the injection just a few days ago. And the next day, I didn't feel good. I experienced like I had the flu, but it was short term. It was about 24 hours, and then it went away. And that's an experience of the shedding from someone who had an injection, and in their own bodies, they're making what we understand is the spike protein. That's the outer part of the virus, of the COVID-19 virus. And that's a very toxic protein. So then they're exuding it through their skin and their breath. And if you come around them by giving them a hug or nearby, then your body gets a very small dose of this. But because it's such a poison, you experience symptoms. And that's my understanding of the shedding in relationship to the COVID injections. I don't know if 5G is really involved. It's certainly possible that signals can be put into digital frequencies and things, but we don't have any evidence of that's going on with 5G. But based on the wave genome or the wave DNA that we talked about, that Luc Montagnier, the French immunologist who also received a Nobel Prize for his work on AIDS and the immunodeficiency virus years ago. Sadly, he passed away, but I think that he was concerned about this possibility. But nobody knows really how 5G may be involved in shedding.
Okay, thank you so much. May I ask what is a subtle energy is, how to find and realize in our daily life?
Well, the biofield is in part a very subtle energy. Now, it's also conventional electromagnetic energy. We know the brain waves and the heart waves, and there's potentials of every cell membrane. But in our lab, we've explored even subtle energies beyond conventional electromagnetics. And we've looked for what is really chi or ki. What is it? Is because science does not have a concept of this life energy, this life force. But historically, science actually was embroiled with life force, going back to, the age of vitalism a few centuries ago. And there's always been an undercurrent, another thread of looking at life besides a bag of biomolecules. And that is the dominant view, that we're nothing more than a bag of biomolecules, maybe held together by water and skin. But really, life is an energetic phenomena. And I believe, because I'm a spiritual person, that the living systems go beyond conventional matter and energy and extend into more subtle realms. And so I'm very interested in the concept of chi, which might take us into that realm between spirit and matter. And I think that chi has one foot in the physical world and another foot, so to speak, in the spiritual dimensions, where there would be subtle energies. And that life is really a very complex and profound phenomenon that is not just physical. Now, we live in an age where, it's been pretty materialistic, the 20th century and continuing in the 21st century. But I think it's time to get back to the deeper principles of our ancestors who understood these things just intuitively. If you have time to relax and intuit and go out in nature, I think you will certainly realize that where did all this beauty and amazing organization in our natural world come from? And the nature is really perfect, and the human being is far from perfect, and we know we didn't make nature. So that we must accept the notion of a spiritual dimension to life and the making of life that is far beyond us, that came from the spirit world. Personally, I believe in God. I know there are many different religions that embrace spirituality, don't necessarily accept a divine creator, but that makes the most sense to me. And then there are very subtle dimensions to life that can be explored in science. And so this is what we started to do in our laboratory. And sure enough, we discovered some aspects of subtle energies that go beyond conventional electromagnetics. For example, we can distinguish the difference between positive emotions and negative ones with a detector. And so that goes back to Dr. Emoto's experiments, where that explains really how projecting love might make a beautiful water crystal over here, and projecting negative emotions might disrupt water and create a very dissymmetrical crystal. Because we do emit emotional energy, and I think it has action across a distance on one another. And so this is something to keep in mind, that that's one of the subtle energies that we emit, that we have control over our emotions and how we manifest ourselves among one another. And we can, I think, really raise the consciousness not only of ourselves, but of the world around us by embracing love, by projecting love and positive emotions. And so I think it's really time that we take charge of this, because unfortunately, humanity has become quite divided in recent years. And we have wars here and there on Earth, and the threat of even World War III. People talk about it, but we can, I think, overcome all of this by relying on our own self to project positive feelings, and we can really change the world this way.
I strongly agree. Thank you so much. I heard that the Nikola Tesla, he put the stick in the soil and tried to utilize electricity from the earth. And I think, the ruling class party, they don't want to do that because they want to earn their money. And I think human beings have to, understand the ancient this technology in order to start our like a bright future.
Well, I think that there is a way to harness energy from the earth and the ether around us. And I agree with you that it was, shall we say, hijacked. It was brushed aside historically. Tesla probably was the first person who said he would give the world free energy, but his funders, J.P. Morgan and other bankers, didn't want this because they needed a return on their investment, is how they saw it. So how the bankers think. So sadly, we didn't get it, and Tesla is gone, and I don't know the status of his inventions. Tesla, sadly, is not really part of academic science. I don't know why that is, because I think he really was a genius. But sadly, in the West, we don't learn really about Tesla's contribution in our science courses. But I think he had a lot of depth, and hopefully we'll start looking back at that. There are people working on this concept of free energy, harnessing it and making it available. And well, I don't think we're running out of petroleum, and I think there are problems with pollution from petroleum, but I think that electric cars and everything are not sensible, really, because you have to make that energy from somewhere, and it's still polluting. So there's no reason to jump into electric everything, in my opinion. But we have to think about how we could create clean, free energy for a world that is still growing, increasing in population, and making the world, making that energy available to everyone would be the great equalizer in terms of bringing fairness to all peoples in the world. And it's something we really need to do from the depths of our hearts, actually, is to bring out these technologies, if they exist and are viable, to all of our brothers and sisters so that we can thrive.
I think so. Yes, and I think I know the positive side of COVID-19 really opened our mind and to understand how human beings work. Because recently I tried to study, talk about with the brain scientists, understand how brain work and how heating works. And you mentioned about the biophoton and how this light related to our third eye and hand to heal ourselves.
Yes. And, I measured the light from the palms of the hands. And it's very interesting because in Oriental medicine, the right hand is more of the giver, the left hand, the receiver. And so we measured that the right hand, the palm of the right hand emits more light for everyone. Even if they're left-handed, the right hand emits more light. And that is consistent with the ancient wisdom of Oriental philosophy and medicine, yin and yang right, yin left. So again, the science simply validated what ancient cultures knew in Asia about the palms of the hands and the emission. This is one of the greatest emitters in the body, but actually these two fingers, which are also called sword fingers, and you can experience that just feeling it here like this. But this is used in Qigong, sword for cutting energy, but also for sending energy, very focused energy, like a laser beam. And we measured the energy from the tips of these two fingertips, that's the index finger and the middle finger, are the greatest emitters from the whole body of biophotons. Again, consistent with ancient wisdom of Qigong masters that knew about and utilized sword fingers. So it's really quite amazing how the science has only validated the ancient wisdom. So how did they know about these things? Again, they relied on inner knowing, having time to spend in meditation and by themselves. They came to these wise ideas and then they applied them and they found that they could help heal people. And it is totally amazing. I also studied Reiki a long time ago in my laboratory. 20 years ago, we had funding from the US National Institutes of Health to study Reiki masters. And my experiments were on cultures of bacteria. And we showed that Reiki masters could indeed, by putting hands near the cultures and sending energy to help heal these damaged bacterial cultures that had been heat shocked, so they couldn't grow very well, to help them grow over control cultures that were not treated by Reiki masters, but were shocked with heat also. And that was an eye-opener that shows that the energy coming from here with the intention of drawing on universal life energy and sending it for the greatest good does indeed work. Showing it at the level of the cell culture responding is irrefutable that there is an energy directed by the conscious intention that is healing to a sick organism, including humans, but also in this case, cell cultures.
Interesting. So you think that those meditation will help us to increase our ability for healing?
Yes, meditation, of course, take us back into ourselves, into our deepest connection with nature and with source. And, we spend too much time at this day and age with external things. We're busy, right? Watching videos, social media, so many communications, so much information, overload. But we need to take time to go within. I remember how much time I had in my youth to just sit on my bed and meditate and read and think. And today I look at youth, they don't have any time. They're fully scheduled, with sports and so many activities. It's not appropriate for the human to be being. To be doing. We are being. We are human beings and we need to be. Just be alone and reflect and rely on deep intuition to make contact with ancient wisdom and our heritage as humans, to connect to higher realms from within ourselves. And yes, these ancient practices, meditation, yoga, qigong, can help us recover our connection.
And also, I heard that, in Japan, there's a 100 monkey story. In Japan, there were some monkey started washing the potato, and when it hit 100, it went to the remotely to some far distance monkey start doing same thing. And we believe that, if we have a good mind of 100 people, then it might transfer remotely to other 100 people group. Do you think this thing is existing in our like human society?
Well, it does exist. And in fact, it was 30 years ago, there was an interesting experiment that I was involved with. And it was about a group of meditators that were brought to Washington, D.C. They were advanced meditators. And parts of Washington, D.C., at least 30 years ago, were high crime rates. And they had the idea if they bring meditators around Washington, D.C. for one summer, then they will study the crime rate over time and compare it to other summertime crime rates where crime usually goes up. And in fact, they showed in the scientific study that the crime rate went down during the time period of bringing in, it was thousands of meditators to Washington, D.C. This was under President Clinton's administration in the 1990s. And it was really remarkable to see the results. And I was involved in this experiment remotely. I was not a principal investigator, but followed the crime rate and the numbers of meditators in a daily way. And there was definitely a correlation. It was really beautiful. And so not only does it work with monkeys washing potatoes, but it works at the human level that a small number of people with higher consciousness can shift the dynamics of a society and produce less crime. It's really a remarkable thing. And that was the meditation done by the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the meditation with mantras that are given by that type of meditation. There are many types of meditation. I'm not saying any one is better than another, but I do think they're all designed to raise human consciousness. And so that's a very good thing to practice. And I think we can have influence at a distance.
I see. Interesting. Thank you for giving us hope. And I know that you are studying about the aura healing. And I recently discovered there's like a Metatron, the terminal called Metatron, to heal the aura. How can we heal our aura in our daily life?
Well, the aura is really part of the biofield.
Okay.
And again, by the principle of Oriental philosophy, where the mind goes, the chi flows. So if you use your mind to improve your biofield with the aura as well, because it extends beyond the body, then that's it. And I think really by the ancient practices, meditation, yoga, and qigong, and there are various types of them, just so many to choose from, and consistent daily practice. And after about 2 years, I found that measuring the aura of people, they get more stable and a larger biofield. After 2 years of consistent daily practice of one of those modalities, meditation, qigong, yoga. So we need a practice, and we need to do it daily, consistently, and not be worried that we're not getting there, not just do it, and it will take care of you. That's simple.
Interesting. Be giving us hope. And Dr. Rubik, could you advise to my audience, who is, suffering with the negative mind that people like to, have hope with this, unseen dysfunction, if we improve our biofield, how can we like adopt in our daily life, give us advice?
Well, I follow the Bible, and I'm thinking now of something that inspires me when I feel down, and that is when I believe and pray, I receive. So you need faith, and you need to reach out in prayer, and then you will receive what you need. It's that simple. But I also think that you need, in order to develop faith, you need a practice, because you can just say you believe, but that's not deep enough. You need to have your whole being embrace that belief. And when you do, then I think amazing things will happen for you. And, it's a wonderful world if you learn how to navigate in this world. It doesn't have to be a bad world, even though there are many bad things happening. It's always been like that, I suspect, that the world is a place where we learn lessons. And we learn to navigate our souls and our minds and our hearts and try different ways of being in this world. And then we find that we need to have something to hold on to, something positive in order to live well. And I think that's part of the art of living. And then we need to pray. We need to, which actually helps build our faith, our belief in a good nature of life. And then we hold all of that in our minds and we will receive what we need. And life will become easier and definitely more pleasant. No matter what's going on all around us, the drama of the world, as the Buddhists called it, the world drama, it goes on. It's how it is here. But we can find an easy and relaxing and nourishing place to be. But it takes an effort and then an understanding of what we need to do to orient ourselves. So have faith, pray, hold on to that, practice daily, and you will receive what you need and you will feel much better.
Thank you for giving us a beautiful advice. And Dr. Rubik, how can we follow you? Do you have like a website that we can take a look at it?
I have a couple of websites. I regret they're not up to date. One is brubik.com and another one is frontiersciences.org for my nonprofit laboratory.
Okay.
I must get some help with some web people to update them. I've been a little negligent, but I have a lot of papers that you can find, and I have various other interviews out there. I don't keep track of them, but I know they're up there somewhere. So I assume you can search my name and find things.
I will definitely do that. Like, can we give you like a donation? Do you have like those functions as well?
I do. At my frontiersciences.org website, there's a little donate button. We're not set up for Bitcoin. Maybe we should be, considering how that thing is going up these days. But in any case, we would very much appreciate donations. We are a nonprofit laboratory and an independent scientist because, this way we are committed to really discovering the truth. And a lot of things, sadly, science is sometimes hijacked by big business. And that means if you're associated with big business interests, then you don't get the unbiased science that's really looking for truth. So it's very important, I think, for me at least, to be an independent scientist and not focus with any particular business to be making money and giving voice to, biased science. Because science for me was a yoga of pursuing the truth, of really understanding God's great creation, nature, and life. And so that's my path as a scientist. I think many scientists start out that way, and then sadly they get hijacked by the business interests of science, the corporate world of science, and it isn't real science anymore. Sadly, it's done for a purpose, it's slanted. And so I can tell you that our science is true, that we're pursuing the path of truth is very important, the yoga of truth.
Dr. Rubik, I think, your position and your work is very important for the humanity. And I would strongly, ask you to please, be healthy and, keep up the good work. And when your product is ready, please, let us know. So we can purchase.
Yes, I will. And we'll be looking out for people like you who can bring this to the world, because people have to become more conscious about the sea of microwaves in which we're embedded, which is also, I think, taking down human consciousness. If we can't think straight, our memories are affected, then of course human consciousness is disrupted. And so we must become conscious of that and work toward recovering our true human heritage as conscious beings here. So we must avoid all these 5G devices that are going to be now flooding the market, along with more microwave emissions. So we must beware and not get sidetracked tricked into saying, oh, I want faster internet so I can download my movie in 6 seconds. That's how they're selling these things to the public. But it's a sales pitch, and there's many things that we must avoid about 5G in order to keep our health and our humanity.
I think this, is invisible, enemy, and we are facing a World War III right now. I think we are in the middle of World War III, and we have to understand spiritually and materially to improve ourselves. And thank you so much for your time today. It's really precious moment for us. And Dr. Rubik, can you do me a two favor? One, can you come back to my show again?
Yes, I'll come back to your show, especially when we have our device finished and we can discuss how that works. That would be great. So next year sometime, I'll be happy to come back to your show. There's always so much to talk about. I've got 40 plus years of science behind me of this type. There's so many really exciting experiments. I really need to sit down and write a book, which I need to take time to do. To put it all together for people, because it's been quite a journey, and I'm so delighted that I had the ability and the decision to become an independent scientist in my life, and to have my own laboratory and be able to pursue these questions that most people don't have the funding or the capacity to do this, because they're locked in to usually the corporate world with limited level of questions that they must pose as scientists to really do the job of enhancing the corporation. But my questions were large questions about humans and life on Earth and in relation to the spiritual realm. So I've been really gifted with being able to pursue that, because that was what I wanted to do in my life, and I stuck with it. And so I encourage all young people who are also raising questions, big questions that they'd like to pursue about life on Earth and spiritual dimensions, to pursue it, to carve out your own path, because it's possible. And again, if you believe and if you pray, you will receive what you need to do it.
Thank you for the beautiful advice. And my dream is, to interview 100 truth seeker in the world, and you're one of them. And do you have any person that you recommend that I should talk on my show in the future?
Well, I'll think about it and let you know.
Okay, thank you so much.
There's certainly a list to be had, and it's not a short list.
Okay, Doctor, really enjoy talking with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, I appreciate your questions. They were excellent. And I'm hoping that this show will make a difference in people's lives, and I know it will.
Thank you, Dr. Rubik. And really looking forward to speak with you again.
Likewise, blessings to you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye now.
心が求めるものは目には見えない。手に入るものこそ全てだと信じていた。精神と物質、どちらかではなく、どちらもある世界へ。融合の時代が今始まる。スピリチュアルとマテリアルの絶妙のハーモニーを奏でるサロン。それこそがシゲルサロン。2025年を迎えるあなたにこそ届けたい。未来への熱い思い。4次元の視座で見つめて真ん中の消化体を獲得して。新規会員募集中。過去のアーカイブ全部見放題。毎月のオンラインセミナーもあるよ。さあ、あなたも勇気を出して新しい世界に飛び込もう。シゲルで待ってるよ。